Okay, so this idea that if I change my awareness to chi, so I'm saying this is more body awareness, and this is more about experiences and relationships. Then as I get older, perhaps I am richer. Perhaps I've acquired, my treasures have gotten, as my Jing declines and is less valuable or less resourceful, perhaps my level of experiences have grown, and I'm therefore a richer human being for that. Right? There is also a level, though, of just seeking experiences that at some point, like if, let's say, I want to have a relationship with a member of the opposite sex, and I just keep multiplying that. I just keep having lots and lots of relationships. But I haven't particularly learned anything from those relationships, right? This idea of Shen is that I am processing these relationships, right? And that I'm learning from these experiences. I am a certain level of reflection. Okay? And in that, some kind of self-wisdom. Right? So if I travel, I can't travel to every country in the world. I can't meet every person in the world. But I can sample. And at some point in my life, I might decide that I've seen a lot, I've explored different cultures, and at the basis of it, we all experience pain, we all experience loss, a certain kind of suffering, we all want to be loved, we all want good food. There are certain comforts that we want, and there are certain experiences that everyone is more alike than they are different on some level. Okay? And so it's not about getting these experiences or pursuing more relationships, but now it's gleaning what I need to get out of them, reflecting and refining my being now, refining my consciousness, right? And at the end of my life, if I have made this kind of alchemical transition, if I'm more about my Shen, then I have less when I go into the void or emptiness, okay? When it's time to die, I'm not holding on to that much. It's easier to let go, right? Because I've gotten away from the very physical. Right? So this is the alchemy of that. And in terms of consciousness, we usually look at Jing as mass consciousness, the village awareness, tribal consciousness. Right? And if you stay with your tribe, you stay with your village, and you don't evolve, you say, I'll only evolve with my peers, it's going to take a long time. Right? As opposed to, this is the idea of individual or personal consciousness. And instead of what I grew up to believe, this is what I directly experience. Right? If I'm told that, our tribe does not like the purple people. Beware of the purple people, right? And then you go out and you meet a purple person, right? And then you say, it was okay. It wasn't, what I learned, what I was told to believe isn't necessarily what I experienced. And now my individual experience has greater control than the sort of mass consciousness, right? And moving up, so we could call this kind of the pelvic to lower abdominal cavity, and then the lower abdominal to chest cavity, thoracic cavity, and the cranial cavity. Right? This is how this is seen in terms of the body. And up here now is cosmic consciousness, transcendental consciousness, Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness, whatever you want to call that transcendent level. Right? So this is our goal from a Taoist perspective. Identifying with the body early on, relationships later, and then a more spiritual realm. And then being comfortable that written into our lives is literally a shelf life. We have an expiration date. We don't know when that is. But they talk about longevity. So longevity is not just long life, but it's quality of life. Right? And if you were told you could live 10 more years of healthy life, or 20 more years, but the last 10 would be bedridden and hooked up to machines, suddenly duration is not as important as quality of life. So when they talk about long life or longevity in Chinese, and this is the most stylized character, there's 100 different ways to write this character for long life. And it's seen on a lot of, plates and embossed in silk jackets, and it's a very common character. It always implies a certain quality of health too, so it isn't just the duration. Right? So are we okay so far with that description? Yeah. No questions? We're good? All right. Yeah, good.
What happens when a person is staying, like, for example, mass consciousness for whole life or 2/3 of the life?
Uh-huh.
So in terms of Jing, Qi, and Shen.
Well, we know that some people never advance in terms of the chakra system, and it's also true of the Dantian system here.
So in Jing state?
They're more concerned, these are people that are more concerned with their bodies and other people's bodies, and usually there's a sense of, I only deal with people that look like me or act like me. There tends to be a very limited experience. I'm only comfortable with people in my tribe or in my village. Right? So there's a very limited awareness there. And you would say that the vibrational level is not going up. They're staying at one level. So
could be ignoring the individual experience of consciousness?
Well, very possibly, in terms of what do we need when we're born, right? And you think of essentially the bonding process, right? We need some sense of nourishment, and in that nourishment time, the bonding time, the emotional pattern of the mother while she's breastfeeding or while she's bottle feeding, right? The baby imprints that emotional set, and then that becomes equated with love. So nourishment and love are connected here. Okay? And if my mother was very anxious when I was being fed, she was perhaps she was young, perhaps her mother wasn't around, whatever situation, if she's insecure about that, then I'm going to associate that anxiety or insecurity with love, something that will nourish my soul. So I will seek that out. Right? So that's part of what I was talking about in terms of what the possible lessons might be with the different parents. Right? So even though I look across a sea of people in a party, and then I have that sort of like, whoa, that's the one, that somehow something happens, and we think it's all about, I like the way you look, or your style, or the way you talk, or your appearance, or your manner. I mean, whatever we think it is, there's some spiritual part that basically says, you are dysfunctional in the perfect way that I need. Right? And we are masters at this. It's scary. It's scary how you can find the right person in a crowd of people, So that you get to this idea of what is a soulmate, right? And many of us have this idyllic version of, back to the Garden of Eden, and we're, kind of frolicking, and it's all, how wonderful that is. But my concept of a soulmate is this is someone who insists that you learn your lessons. This is someone who will push your buttons. Okay? They will not let you get away with not learning your lesson. Right? That's a soulmate. I'm sorry it's not the idyllic version, but it's...